With the NES release of Super C now in the record books, Konami would officially close out the 8-bit chapter of a beloved run-and-gun legacy. 2 games that could easily sit atop the list of most influential games of their generation. By the time the Super NES rolled around, the Nintendo brand was easily the worldwide leader in home console entertainment, and with those credentials, Konami now looked to develop a 16-bit predecessor to this flagship series. With each entry that followed, the series felt more grandiose in scale, which makes it even more surprising when I tell you I didn't look to own Contra III my first go-around with the Super NES. Getting new games for this beast would typically come through special events. Not those special events, but more so like a birthday or Christmas. And interestingly enough, game prices in comparison have more or less stayed pretty consistent over the years. Yeah, seriously, this right here was the same price as this, so unfortunately, Contra 3 would wind up being a rental exclusive for the foreseeable future. So, how would I summarize my initial experience with Contra 3? Upon firing it up, the game looked incredible. The opening cutscene told me everything I needed to know. There's so much going on in this one scene alone. However, with that in mind, can a game to a degree become overstimulating? To the point you sort of get turned off by it? Huh? That's impossible, right? I constantly praise the over-the-top challenge the first 2 entries provided me. I know. For whatever reason, I felt indifferent with this one, and unfortunately, that feeling stuck with me for years to come. Was I intimidated by this? I'm not entirely sure, but what I do know is I would need to sit down with this one again to finish what I started many moons ago, and maybe, just maybe, this revisit would spark something inside me, reinvigorating that feeling I once had upon reading about it for the very first time. Besides, I wasn't planning on throwing myself a pity party. This is in fact a marathon, and we're currently knee-deep in the trenches, so at this point, we gotta be in it to win it. On top of that, we got an alien invasion to deal with, so before things get out of hand, we need to do a little research to pinpoint events which led us down a path of heavy metal madness, as we now embark on these storied events which would come to be known as the Alien Wars. With Gava's brood officially dismantled, it appeared as if Earth's defenses finally managed to rid themselves of intergalactic takeover. However, as time lapsed into the future, powers to be moved silently behind the scenes. Due to the complexity of Gava's adaptive nature, he managed to keep his sentient brain intact, a separate entity entirely whom bears powerful, regenerative factors able to reconstruct his anatomy along with his fallen army over time. Now alive and well, his brood reinstates their plans for all-out war of Earth. Well shit, whatever happened to if you can't beat him, join him. Besides, we could use some of that alien tech, especially when updating my old graphics card. But hey, to each their own. If the Red Falcons want a war, then they got one, as Earth Federation looked once more to task the Contra Force with saving humanity from a global takeover. Contra 3 introduces series veterans and newcomers alike to a beautiful 16-bit makeover of a classic run-and-gun franchise. This graphical overhaul is complemented by a variety of complex design choices, bearing crafty new game mechanics that takes our duo to the next level. This is done through a handful of quality additions to your arsenal that makes this adventure a true action thriller. What makes a large majority of these additions essential is how they aid in your interactions with these new environments. For starters, Old Billy Boy can now grab a hold of a large assortment of in-game props to aid in transit across the many over-the-top hazards. You can grab a hold of scaffolds to scurry your way to safer grounds, or cling to walls and ceilings to dodge a variety of enemy assaults. You scale the highest plains to reach uncharted territories, or pull a GTA and go hog wild across the city streets. It's an immersive experience to say the least. Now, make no mistake about it, Contra is known for these high impact moments, and if you think for a second these upgrades will turn you soft, fear not. You have plenty of moments to blow shit up, with a variety of creative set pieces to interact with. There's also plenty options to approach each stage, so if things begin to get overwhelming, you can adjust your difficulty from the very start, allowing you to grow accustomed to your skill set with each playthrough, as each difficulty setting bears unique aspects. Now, Contra wouldn't be Contra without its many stylized modes of play, just as the Super NES wouldn't be nearly as super without those spiffy Mode 7 graphics. So, what we have here is a true styles clash, utilizing Contra's additional top-down viewpoint now captured in an all-new light. These stages are mapped out with specific targets in mind that must be searched out and destroyed to proceed forward. This will require you to rotate our commandos across a variety of obstacles utilizing the gamepad's shoulder buttons. The B button allows you to take to a prone position to avoid enemy fire, while your firepower is dual wielded, allowing you to switch on the fly or combine the two to perform a pretty nasty dual wielded attack, which will come in handy when you least expect it. Now, we can't proceed forward with our orders without taking a closer look at the latest and greatest tech provided to our heavy-handed heroes. For starters, we have the homing gun, able to launch a consecutive series of heat seekers that lock into targets in bordering proximity. It's not the ideal weapon for large-scale encounters, but it's perfect for providing a clear path forward when you land in a sticky situation. The Crush upgrade fires a streamline of missiles that implode on contact, causing a great deal of damage when paired with a rushdown offense. Although the machine gun is now technically your base weapon, I would consider this the Super NES equivalent of it powered up. The flamethrower this time around is a true flamethrower, emitting a strong and steady flame that slow roasts those in its crosshairs. We also discover and come equipped with tiny hand grenades, able to be activated on command, clearing out a horde of on-screen enemies. It's similar to the traditional Falcon screen nuke of old, just in larger quantities. Now, there's new methods to this madness when it comes to wielding our heavy arms. For starters, we can now lock ourselves into position if we find the perfect angle to fire, as we can now keep our feet planted to the pavement, firing from all angles to pick off those hard to reach enemies. To complement this further, Bill can now switch off between these newly acquired upgrades, able to carry up to 2 at a time, wielding 1 in each hand. You can effortlessly switch between them on command throughout gameplay or while paused, granting you ample time to coordinate a plan. In the event you're taken out in combat, the weapon you had disarmed will still be located in your inventory, so slot that baby into place and it's go time. In the event you pick up a second weapon, again go balls to the wall and fire both together for a dual-wielded attack, which will have you roaming the street hosing your opponents from all angles. Now, the downside here is getting picked off while performing this action will result in the loss of both weapons, so it really makes you guess your strategy when in those clutch do-or-die moments. Now, before we are put to the ultimate test, we need to now pick our position moving into the heat of battle. Which road do we go down once more here? Well, for storied purposes, I'll be playing through the Japanese release, but as far as in-game features go, this release offers players unlimited continues to keep you invested when the chips are down, access to the sound test to relive all those amazing 16-bit moments, a level select, and even a way to once again opt in for a 30 life code. Man, I can't wait to see what the US release has. Oh yeah, that's right, none of those. No wonder I had such a great time renting this as a kid. Well, again, we are putting those memories behind us as we now embark on a quest to best old Gava and friends once and for all. As this story opens, there's not a moment to spare. Our home turf appears in shambles as we now must make a move, defending the remaining inhabitants of Neo City. Muscle memory quickly settles in as you begin to adjust to this new arsenal for one wild ride ahead. These city streets have become occupied by Red Falcons looking to further liberate a once prosperous city. You now go to work dissecting enemy blockades, attempting to halt your every advance. It's a blast right from the very start, hijacking enemy war vessels to kick down their many strongholds. While you're at it, be sure to parallel park this thing right across their shit-eating grins. The streets quickly crumble beneath the heavy workload, creating new measures to advance. Things quickly heat up too as you become surrounded by hot magma soaring from the roots of a planet now struggling to level its plagued surface. It's vital to get a good feel for your placement, swiftly moving across the falling debris. You manage to catch your breath just long enough for enemy backup to arrive. A giant kaiju bursts through the cities of fallen remains looking for some late-night offerings. This beast houses its own ecosystem, which inhabits its core. Don't get comfortable just yet. You need to constantly shift between the freshly laid gravel to clear the many enemy swarms till you manage to get a clean shot off into the creature's exposed weak point. As you continue to rummage the streets, you will soon uncover the first of these newly adopted Mode 7 top-down areas. Here you can choose your own starting destination, which allows you to drop in for a unique attack strategy. The key is locating the marked surveillance domes which house the enemy strongholds. It's not going to be an easy road ahead, as alien forces remain on the move and you need to get accustomed to the rotating movement of your soldier. For a first-timer, this can get hella disorienting, causing you to easily overshoot your turning radius, leaving you blindsided at times. You need to get slick with your footwork, evading well-placed infantry and landmines, causing the city streets to quickly crumble beneath your feet. Take one step forward and two back to allow the asphalt to reveal the way. Destroying each of these guarded structures releases the Red Falcon's latest war vessel, the Bosco Spider. This unit is equipped with 6 rounded cannons, with one mounted to each leg, along with a laser cannon equipped to the tail. To make matters worse, this large hunk of arachnoid junk will continue to spiral out of control, lunging forward in efforts to pancake the opposition. If you can manage to deactivate each of its armed infantry points, the core will become exposed as you set your sights on this ugly mug for a vengeful display of firepower. After securing the streets, it's time to move to higher grounds. Investigating the many strange occurrences upstate, inside the city's many factories and refineries, it appears the Red Falcons have taken over these parts to further craft their new weapons of war. This stage is where you earn your stripes, putting your newly acquired skills to the test as you scale the factory walls, moving from rooftop to rooftop across the many skywalks where chaos breaks out high above the city. Things quickly spiral out of hand too, as gigaflies begin swarming the rooftops, looking to give you a lift across, but not to the next destination. No, back to their nest to feed the fam. The only problem, however, is they chose the wrong meal plan, because this isn't our first rodeo, and soon enough, they get a taste of that sweet new pyro you've been itching to try out. Heat these buggers up to their roasty toasty, and in due time, you'll find yourself rotating across some wicked new tech as it soon becomes an endurance round across these factory scaffoldings. You can't overthink things. Each moment feels like your last as a slew of mechanical big bads move in to make mincemeat pie out of your hide. This is by far the most iconic stage of Contra III, and the music and atmosphere is a testament to the powerhouse that is the Super NES. You eventually topple enough machinery till you reach the inner facilities, kicking down doors and swinging past each line of security. When you reach the main assembly line, you're greeted to a pair of wannabe T-600s that would even make Arnold himself break a sweat. These robo-twinsies pack a mighty punch. Armed with their own personal buster cannons, they will light up the factory, taking turns unleashing their firepower to throw you off your game. One will cling to the ceiling, emitting a spread shot from deep within as the other rapidly fires away with its buster cannon. Stick to the ceiling for some keep away, focusing in on one at a time till you break them down, keeping an eye on their flappy severed corpses that try to pull you below. Putting these two out of commission awakens the main powerhouse of this assembly line, a giant TMFer that pops in for a good thrashing. Stick to your strats, navigating the corridors and clearing his wave of firepower, only to then drop down to unload for a brutal facial. Rinse, wash, and repeat, and in moments, you can pack him up along with a return label for a full refund. If things didn't feel batshit crazy enough for you yet, then rest assured they will as you now look to make your city escape, hauling ass on some futuristic cycles for a downhill chase. This is some real Fury Road shit right here, as you haul ass along this Mad Max-inspired superhighway right into the desert. Well, these parts gotta lead us to Area 51, right? Because the incoming defenses sure seem to be ramping up. An alien cruiser sits down atop this raceway, looking to unpack an old Billy Boy with some out-of-this-world weaponry. Turrets fire on sight, as do troops dropping in from the lower hatches, now swinging about this ship's monkey bars to crash land atop you. This stage has some unique moments that make this entire chase come to life. Each wave of enemy troops are exceptionally animated. I love the entire sequence as backup swoops in to give you a hand as the stage flawlessly transitions from ground to air, giving chase to the skies. It's moments like this that I truly get behind, a 1v1 Last Action Hero style battle atop your aircraft. A perfect homage to the late 90s action hero trope, capturing that very moment when a hero faces his rival. As you put this Red Falcon Enforcer down for the count, the stage swallows you up as you proceed to lead your charge across a speeding missile heading towards the heart of the enemy. This is where the gameplay of Contra III begins to go off the rails for me. You sold me up until the second half, as this, along with many late game sequences, feel like a constant beginner's trap with ridiculous enemy and object placement. This segment alone requires you to shift from the various missiles, keeping a key eye on their trajectory while eliminating mounted turrets above and below the enemy craft. Oh, and by the way, missiles further deploy from its core. The round becomes exhausting to execute, and by the time you start getting this pattern down, you easily run out of mental stamina. Stage 5 is another top-down Mode 7 party, which feels just as samey as before. Hey listen, maybe I'm getting a little cranky from the constant blindsided attacks, as this stage becomes more of the same old, now relying on those quicksand traps to throw you off the already narrow path. The objective remains the same, only the end result becomes even more messy as the shifting floors have you constantly going against the grain in order to get a clean shot off, especially when you reach the end stage boss encounter. These stages are okay for what they are, but they just take me out of it at times. For me personally, these stages don't truly complement the gameplay the same way prior installments on the NES did. Destroying the sand creature reveals a path into the heart of the alien nest, which houses Gava's whereabouts in his newly reformed alien brood. We finally arrive back to Gava's domain, greeted to a familiar presence only now portrayed in a stunning 16-bit makeover. You're given a welcome back party too, as Orions set their sights on our battle-tested commando. Every step becomes more precise as you clear the initial roundabout of Gava's lair. As you proceed forward, you're greeted to a ghost of the past. Well, if it isn't Java in the flesh, now reborn, looking to settle an age-old rivalry, coming forth once more to mist his alien offspring throughout the halls, blurring your field of vision as you attempt to level the playing field. Shake it off and lock back in, sending his head packing clean off, back to Daddy Gava. Clear a path ahead and stay locked and loaded, as the room reshapes once more and the platforming gets tighter and tighter, snaking a path ahead back to the bleeding heart of Java. Memories unfold as your innate defenses kick in, sticking to what worked in the past to secure a speedy victory. Where the first two alien bases of Contra 1 and 2 told a complete story, slowly unraveling these events, this entire sequence begins to feel more like a boss rush than a grand finale, continuously running into enemies of old with similar strats for victory. This almost begins to feel like an attempt at the Castlevania 4 formula, reimagining past events which took place on the NES. As you again tackle a new and improved Gava, he doesn't bring anything new to this fight other than switching up his placement and attack patterns, which only further blindsides you as opposed to allowing players to constructively draw a counter-inclusion from those movement patterns. As you put Gava to rest once more, you quickly become introduced to the true big bad of the Alien Wars, the sentient brain of Gava. This sucker's synapses are firing on unparalleled levels as he reconstructs his attack strategies on the fly. This fight becomes a roulette of random attacks that you can surprisingly handpick if you line your sight up just right. His sequence of attacks range in difficulty, coming through a fury of eye-opening surprise attacks to growing a new set of limbs. Regardless, one thing is apparent, this mother brain is constantly thinking 2 steps ahead. Just when you think it's down for the count, you'll be outsmarted again, playing possum long enough for you to assume your escape above, only resulting in a clever chase down when you least expect it. This killer meatwad now ascends upward, equipped with an android shell that is mentally controlled, quickly lunging towards you in attempts to leave you for dead. Anticipate some heavy-handed swipes as you pivot back and forth across the rescue chopper's missile, aiming below to unload a quick round. Without hesitation, continue firing the last of your rounds into this creature of nightmares, and when you least expect it, you will find your moment of triumph, pushing ahead with every last fiber until this mother brain reaches maximum overdrive, igniting into a ball of fire, crashing back down into the pit below. As your rescue chopper continues flying steadily throughout this tightly packed corridor, the operator pulls back on the controls to soar up and out of the structure, discovering an exit just in time as a chain reaction sends the alien base into a fiery oblivion. Holding strong, clear skies lie ahead, leading our team to a safe path home, where our commando was greeted to a standing ovation as the residents of Neo City celebrate a very hard-fought victory. Well done, team. Well done. Contra III took a long overdue duology and built a faithful home sequel from the ground up. This was not only a milestone for the series, but further helped establish the prominence of Nintendo in the mid-90s. The game should absolutely be praised for the many new ideas that were brought forth, pushing the needle forward by accentuating the many things the series did right, while creating quality improvements that make this entry feel like a true successor. With that said, I can't help but feel that the game still lacks a greater sense of depth. Each stage is more than capable of standing on their own, yet as a complete package, still comes up a bit short in comparison to its prior predecessors. This primarily due to the stage format, with 2 of the 6 stages being attached to those Mode 7 constructed stages, and although a fun idea, these areas tend to break up the gameplay for me as they start to chug from the very beginning, especially when confined to a limited viewing window. The final area is another heartbreaker for me, becoming more of a glorified boss rush than a fully fleshed out alien den to explore. Where the original NES installments slowly built up to these endgame events, the areas throughout the Alien Wars have little to no transitions from stage to stage, often just throwing you into another random scenario with no rhyme or reason. The early releases introduced you to each new area with a gradual learning curve, while in the Alien Wars, you're constantly thrown into a cluster of chaos that never truly teaches you the ropes. I feel if we were given a full-age stage layout like prior entries, these sections could be expanded upon with longer stretches. With that said, this game still packs a great deal of replay value, and although I personally don't rank it as high on the list as its 8-bit counterparts, I still have a fond appreciation for the many things it did right. When a game is good, it's good, leaving you wanting a bit more, which is really what I was looking for in the end. But perhaps we can still get just that, as our neighboring 16-bit counterpart would quickly follow suit, delivering us that gritty, edgy Contra experience only the likes of the Genesis could deliver. When we return, we'll be looking at none other than Contra Hard Corps. See you there, gang.